And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Triangle Tennis Podcast fans. I am here, Zach Chakowski, as always, with my co-host, Dr. Matthew Hanauer. And we've got a really, really good episode today. We are incredibly lucky to be part of the best tennis scene in the country. It's a fact. Don't look it up. Just trust me. Not only is the level of tennis, access to courts, and weather good, there are some truly lovely people in the scene. One of those people is our guest today, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet on or off the court. And in addition to being a darn good tennis player, he's a parent and someone a lot of us look up to for advice. Today, we are thrilled to welcome Mr. Mark Scherr on the pod. Mark, thanks so much for being here, man.
Hey. Thanks for having me, guys. Long-time listener, first time.
Long-time listener of 2 months. Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's such an outrageous statement. I love it.
I know, Mark. You do get really excited. So one of the reasons I was kind of like meh on the pod, Zach and I did them, and they were kind of fun. But then I got to see yours and a couple of the East End boys' reactions, and they were like really excited. I was like, oh, people kind of like this, so it makes it a lot more fun for us as well.
Yeah.
Can we get into this for a second, Mark? What have you enjoyed about the pod as a listener, and what are you most looking forward to talking about today as a guest?
It's super interesting. So on like the Saturday mornings, for the most part, you're playing tennis. Unless you're doing something outside of that with the East End boys, you don't really get to know too much about their history or, anything that's like below the surface. It's been really cool to hear from, all the numerous guests you guys have had on the podcast and just learn more about their tennis journey and more about their life outside of tennis. It's been really cool to just learn more about, who I consider my buds.
Yeah. It's this amazing thing where, people from all backgrounds, all walks of life, different ages, different genders, everything. They have this shared bond of tennis. And I totally agree. That has been one of my favorite things. I've learned stuff about people I just wouldn't have even been on my radar if not for doing the pod. So, and I hope that we can do a little bit of that with you today.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
So to start us off, you're a parent. How old is your child or kids?
Yeah, so I have one daughter currently. She's 2.5, and I have one more on the way. Her due date is actually tomorrow.
Whoa.
So any day now.
Whoa. That's breaking news.
Yeah, any day now. Right?
I think it was breaking news 8 months and 30 days ago.
Yeah, that's true.
Is that how that works? Point. I don't know. Matt and I are not.
No, we don't really know how that works.
Yeah, but a lot of the people that listen either are or are looking to become parents, and so does your child play? And if not, are you going to introduce them to the game?
Yeah, she definitely has a racket. She's had a racket for she's 2.5, so she's had a racket for about a year. She doesn't really know how to use it or anything like that, but like she is scheduled to take lessons when she turns 3. So in about half a year, she's going to start her first lesson. And yeah, I'm really hopeful that she plays. I watched my wife play with her parents, and it just is a really cool thing that you can do.
Oh,
that's fun.
What is this? Oh my God. So Mark right now, this is an audio podcast, not visual. His room robot vacuum cleaner has started going off. And I think the only takeaway I can say from that is that AI and the robots are not fans of the pod. Judge us by our enemies.
Oh no.
Yeah, my robot vacuum.
I've
picked the worst.
I've got one missing in the house. I don't know where it is. It's somewhere.
Do small kids do they think robot vacuums are cool? Are they do they freak out when they see them? Or
they totally freak out. Mine has googly eyes on it and little arms that we made to make it look more friendly.
Oh, you dressed it up.
That's adorable.
That's fun.
You mentioned your daughter is going to start taking lessons when she's 3. How did you pick that age? Is there a book that you read or a YouTube channel? How do you make those kinds of decisions as a parent about when to introduce your child to something new?
So that was the youngest that the pro at my club will take a kid. I just asked the pro, I was like, well, how young can you start tennis? And he said he doesn't take kids before 3. So that's where we are.
That's so interesting. We're going to need somebody to fact check us. Are there pros that take on lessons for kids younger than 3? And are they specialty pros where that's the thing they need training for? Because Like, are you potty trained?
That's what I would imagine the threshold kind of was going through that pro's head probably too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
most
like
kids are
I would
potty
be down.
trained at like 1.5, 2.
Okay.
Get out of here. Really?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
They like just learned how to talk at that point though, and they're already potty trained?
Yeah.
I don't know. I still can't understand
Okay.
my niece. She's like 4 and I don't know what she's saying. No idea what she's saying.
Can you just give us like a quick like run of the mill, like what is like the progression of kids? Like how from the age of 0 to like 5? Just give us a big picture overview. I don't have a kid. I don't know.
Dude, crying, shitting on themselves, vomiting on themselves. Like that's like the whole first stage.
Oh, wow.
And then they start doing their own thing. They start to talk, they start running around doing their own thing. And they become progressively more and more independent. And we're in like this really cool stage of independence right now. And like exploring more complex activities and, being able to do things more as like adults, parents ourselves, and, differentiate that life of being a parent and then going back to who I was, before I had a child. And then I'm about to fuck it up again with another kid.
Reset the clock.
Yeah. So to pivot a little bit, we assume you have a partner. Zach and I don't know a lot about kids, but we generally know how kids are made. So we're gonna assume you have a partner of some kind. Although you could have adopted, that's true. But anyways, does your partner play?
Yeah, she plays. Currently, she's a 3.5. Probably going to get the bump this year to 4.0. She's the one who got me into tennis. Yeah, she plays. She's very good. Up until recently, she used to beat me all the time.
Can you tell us, Mark, how recently it was that the Karen stopped playing?
Oh, she's still playing.
Like today?
Whoa. Yeah, like she just played on Sunday. So she's almost 9 months pregnant, and she had her USTA season. I think she was like 8-0 or 9-0. And sometimes I go out and watch her matches, and I'll sit on the side. And, if the people don't know who I am, they just kind of talk amongst themselves. And there was one time I heard this lady like so pissed that she was losing to this fat pregnant lady.
What'd she say?
She said, I can't believe we're losing to this fat pregnant lady.
Funny. Oh my gosh. That's wild.
Wow. Okay, so for anybody listening to this, if it is a Saturday morning and it's 6:30 and you're a bit hungover and you're like, I don't really want to play today, how dare you? If Karen can play at 8.5 months pregnant and get wins, get your shit together. You can play too. Yeah, that's awesome. Oh yeah. So she went 8-0 while pregnant.
Yeah, while pregnant. Mm-hmm.
Is pregnancy an unfair advantage on the tennis court? Yes or no?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, she can barely move. So like the fact that she's winning still kind of like boggles my mind.
Yeah.
How much has her game changed? Is it
her game has changed a lot? So her and I both started taking lessons like regularly lately, and her game has improved so much within the past like 3 months. Mm-hmm. Like when she has this baby, she's gonna come out like cranking. Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's really, really cool. So, obviously Karen's continuing to play, you're continuing to play. How have you been able to balance being a parent with your shared love of tennis and as a hobby?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think it's really beneficial that she does play.
Yeah.
Because especially that she plays and she's on multiple teams and has her own group of friends, right? So when I go out and play, there's not that sense of guilt of like, I'm leaving my wife, I'm leaving my kid. I go out and play, and then the next night she goes out and plays.
Yeah.
Or if we go out together and let's say we get a babysitter, there are often times where we kind of like split and like I'll go play with my friends, she'll go play with her friends. And it really helps like be able to continue to play tennis with her being out there playing with her own friends.
That's really cool.
I know the babysitter's always been tough. I think the game has changed since we were younger. Like, how difficult is it to find a babysitter?
It's kind of like word of mouth type deal, but for the most part, like if you're on Facebook, there's all these like mommy groups, and there are all these like college students, especially because I live in Chapel Hill, and I'm like 5 minutes from campus. Yeah. So all of the campus, like undergrads, are looking to do babysitting on the side, especially if they're in like, grad school of some type. Babysitting is a pretty easy gig. So we get a lot of kids from UNC.
Okay.
Just from like Facebook posts.
What's like the going rate for a babysitter these days? Do we even want to know?
Yeah. So, I mean, it kind of varies. Like I usually pay 20 to 25.
Okay.
And that's on like the upper end.
Yeah.
The vast majority of people are like 15 to 18.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
That seems
reasonable,
about right? Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Does it go up, or does that rate stay static no matter how old your kid does, or does it go up or down as they get older?
Yeah, so you pay more per kid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right? So like if we have 2 kids, then it goes up. But I still have never seen anybody go over 25.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's about the max.
Man, so you're going from 1 to 2. You're doubling up.
Yeah.
How much do you think that's going to impact your ability to play?
Oh, it's going to impact it a lot at first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to just disappear off the face of the earth for the first 2 months.
Yeah.
And then come back for compo season.
Yeah.
And then, we'll see.
So walk us through when your daughter was born, like what was that year like? Just like from a life perspective and a tennis perspective.
Yeah, it kind of goes in stages, right? So that newborn stage is very much just what they describe in movies. Everybody is sleep deprived. The kid's all crying a lot. Hopefully there's nothing wrong health-wise, but like for the most part, you're just exhausted all the time. And then it progressively gets better as sleep gets better and you start to develop a routine or a schedule. Then you can kind of return to some sense of normalcy.
Yeah.
So it's a big grind at the beginning, but then it gets a lot better with each progressive stage.
Yeah. What's the age you're most excited about?
Probably like that preteen age, like that 10 to 12 age. They'll probably be able to play tennis in some form or fashion and be doing much more in their own school and have their own sports and their own activities that are, going to be a little bit more competitive than they are now. Going to, a gymnastics type thing now it's not super competitive. Everybody's kind of doing the same little flip and fall down type thing.
One of our mutual friends told me recently, and will remain nameless, that 10 to 12 range, they're old enough where they can be helpful and you can kind of like give them chores and responsibilities, but they're young enough that they're not little assholes yet. So there is somewhat consensus among the Easton boys that's the age.
Yeah.
So when was the first time that you brought your daughter to a match?
She came to a match, let's see, probably like sometime in 2022. My wife comes out to a lot of my matches, so it was just kind of like natural that she came out to watch.
Yeah.
And, she's like my little cheerleader, especially when she starts to be able to talk.
Yeah.
She's like my little cheerleader on the side. She'll cheer for me and, smiling, come up to the fence. And she loves it when somebody hits a ball like over the fence and she gets to go get it.
Oh, that's fun.
It's great stuff, man. Super, super like motivating to have your kid out there.
Yeah.
So your daughter's out there. You say your wife comes out sometimes? Do you guys go and watch each other and cheer each other on, or how does that work?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's much better than Zach. And Zach, does Scherr come out ever?
Scherr does from time to time for big matches.
Yeah.
So Scherr's not a tennis player, right? And I think it's so important to have. It's shared interests are great, and we've got several. Tennis is not one of them. It's important to have your own thing, and I think for me, tennis is very much my own thing. Matt, what about you?
Oh God, no, she never. She comes out like maybe once, twice. It doesn't matter.
I feel bad.
I've played you and gotten smoked, and I've also been the one smoking, and she doesn't know the difference. She couldn't tell what the score was either way. She has no idea what's happening.
It's definitely an extra motivator though when your partner's there watching, isn't it?
Unless you're losing, and then it's not.
Oh, it's an extra motivator if I'm losing. I'm like I'm pulling my hair out. Like, what am I gonna do to change this? Because I do not want to lose today. With Scherr watching,
she doesn't know what's going on, so I don't care.
Is it like that with kids as well, where like you extra want to win when they're there, or is your daughter young enough where it's like she doesn't care, she's having a good time watching?
No, she's definitely interested in like whether or not I win or lose. And we kind of like said it's like a teachable moment as to like, oh, dad lost, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Because one thing I noticed, and I definitely don't want her to emulate, is like among tennis players, there's like this like pervasive case of just like beating yourself up on the court.
Yeah.
And like I definitely don't want her to to learn that, at least not from me.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a cool teachable moment.
Is that hard when you're on the court, you're playing well, behaving well, and let's say your opponents are having a bit of a temper tantrum? Like how do you talk about that with a child?
Yeah, like we talk, we talk about like, oh, they need to speak about their feelings and they need to learn how to express themselves, right? I mean, for the most part, like that doesn't happen super often, right? But it is just something like I'm definitely cognizant of when I have my daughter watching. Yeah, like for the most part, like I'm not one of those guys who like shows a lot of emotion on the court. for the most part, it's all internalized. I've never tossed the visor. I've never tossed the racket. Still waiting on to pop that cherry, right? But it's a weird balance, especially in tennis. Tennis is a weird.
Yeah.
It brings it out in me sometimes still. It has been, let's see, a little over 24 hours since I tossed a racket.
Pretty good.
Matt, when's the last time you tossed a visor?
Well, we'll go back to when I was playing. Oh, no, probably Sunday we played at the beach and I tossed a visor playing with Spencer. Yeah. Yep.
Next time I toss something or go into that negative self-chatter, I'm going to think to myself, like, if Mark's adorable daughter is watching, what kind of example am I setting? And I am legitimately going to use this to try and behave myself a little bit better on the courts, which has been a struggle since the age of 4.
Yeah,
for me.
I would agree.
I want to dig into that for 1 second. So Mark, how are you able to just maintain this amazing positivity? Like I've seen you be frustrated with yourself. I've seen you use the full name in frustration, but I've never heard you raise your voice. Yeah, I've never seen you throw anything. How do you do that? Because that is really an anomaly in a good way in the sport.
Yeah, man. So prior to tennis, the only sport I ever played was wrestling, and you would get like in a lot of trouble for that type of talk. Like if you did that, not only would you get like a conduct, like a penalty, but like you get in a lot of trouble with coaches afterwards. Yeah, so like that was something that was kind of trained out of me from a young age. But also, I'm just like kind of a really chill guy, like just for the most part. Like again, it's all internalized. Like believe me, I'm berating myself. It's just inside my head, right? I don't feel like that doesn't motivate me to play better. To like let it out. And I do try to like think about like why, I try to analyze like why am I upset? Like why did I make that mistake? And what can I do better? And it's just something that seems to work better for me.
So Mark, like what does your inner monologue look like on the courts? Or sound like, not look like, it's an inner monologue. What does your inner monologue sound like on the courts?
Yeah, for sure. So like I said a moment ago, I've been taking lessons, and for the most part, like in my tennis journey, I never really took lessons before. It was just kind of like YouTube and things that I learned from my wife or like her family or other people that I play tennis with. But yeah, like now that I'm taking lessons, I have like this inner monologue from the pro that I take lessons with.
Oh, yeah, that's fun.
And very much it's like what we go over in these lessons. Simple things like, okay, well, why is my ball going into the net or dropping the racket? I need to finish higher. All kinds of things like that I just repeat to myself like constantly, because it takes like thousands of balls for a new skill to become a habit, right? And it's just I'm not there yet.
Yeah. Do you have any plans to teach your daughter future? I don't know if you're ready to reveal. I want to put you on the spot. Your future kid. Do you have any plans?
Oh, wait. TTP exclusive? Can we do the gender reveal?
Dude, that is... Oh, okay.
Sure. It's a girl.
Okay.
TTP exclusive. The East End Boys Juniors are growing in ranks, and it's going to be the East End Children Juniors.
Oh, we could have our own juniors team. Oh my gosh, that would be fun.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a whole another.
Yeah, the East End family is growing like crazy. I mean, we're almost at a point in maybe like a year or two to be able to have our own entire East End mixed doubles team.
Oh, wow.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
That is cool.
It's really cool, the amount of like partners that play.
When do you think your daughter is going to beat you for the first time in tennis?
That's a good question. My guess would be like high school age.
Yeah.
Like if she continues to play, because so I look at the experience that I had with my wife's parents and their son. Her brother is very good. He's like a solid 4-5, probably like low end 5-0 player. And like he's very good. And he just beat his father like when he was a senior in high school, I think, for the first time.
Oh, his dad could play then too.
Yeah, his dad's my father-in-law is really good.
Yeah.
He's like almost in his 70s, but he's a low 4-5 player. He doesn't play USTA anymore. Yeah. But like, I mean, he can just put the ball wherever he wants. And there's just no way you're going to make him uncomfortable. It's cool to watch.
Have you played against your father-in-law in tennis?
Oh yeah, many times.
Let's break it down for us. How does it go? Yeah.
Oh, dude. So I mean, he knows what I don't like, right? He does every single shot is like high to my hand. Right? Yeah. He attacks the 1-E just like everybody else does.
They do.
And so it it from a singles perspective, now that he can't move so well, like I can take him. But in doubles, like if he has a solid partner and I can't move him as much, he can still win.
Yeah. Do you ever let him win? Because, like score some good son-in-law points?
Absolutely.
He wouldn't. He
Good
seems
man.
like the kind of guy who wouldn't like that.
No. I'm going to bring him down for the retro racket next time.
Oh, that's really cool. Is he going to break out like the
One of
gear
his
from his
old
youth?
rackets? Yeah, I think so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
If he's got extras,
bring a few.
Bring him down. Show him off.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like there are only but so many chances to show off an old wood racket, and that is very much one of them. Very cool. So you're on your wife's side, tennis family. You, however, are a triple unicorn. You are left-handed. You have a one-handed backhand, and you've gotten very good at tennis after picking it up as an adult. How? How can all those things be true at once? Exactly.
Well, I mean, left-handed, just born. I don't know. Now, the one-y, I mean, like, so I never watched tennis growing up. Tennis wasn't a sport that anybody in my family watched. It was kind of like, seen as like a country club type sport. It definitely didn't have that global appeal that some other entry-level sports have. So I never watched it. And the first time I started watching tennis, I saw Roger Federer. Loved seeing the one-handed backhand. I mean, it is arguably much prettier. I mean, come on.
There's no argument. It just is. It is visually much more appealing. Fact.
Yeah. And so that's one of the as a lefty, like my right arm is kind of useless.
It is, isn't it?
I don't use it for anything.
Use this thing for.
Yeah. And so like it just was like a natural thing to just let this thing just hang there and not use it for anything, right?
Do you know if your daughter's left-handed yet? Is that like
I think she is.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So like, you can kind of start to see that around like 2 to 3. And for the most part now, like everything she does is with her left hand. She draws, she reads, all that other stuff. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Are you gonna suggest to the pro that she learn a one-y or like?
Oh, absolutely not. No.
Tell us why.
Man, it's just like as having a one-y and not having a very good one-y, like it just at a certain level, like at 3-5, no problems for the most part. Like because I can slice it pretty well. But then once you step up even just a half step at 4-0, people see that in the warm up and they target it all match long. I don't see a forehand return. I just everything's down to the backhand, and it's like, how defensive can I be until I can get an offensive shot? And for the most part, like I'm not a very patient person, and I think that's what kills me so much in my matches. Is just like trying to go for too much too quickly.
Are you seeing kind of those similar traits in your daughter already? Does she have a different kind of personality in her game? Like is that expressing itself yet?
Nah, her personality is still forming, right? I mean, so like it's changed so much from just 6 months ago to now, and it'll change again in 6 months. And so much of it is like, she started to go to school. So her personality is no longer just formed by myself and my wife. It's being formed by all these other little children, all these teachers, and all these other outside influences she has in who she's going to become. So, it's going to change a lot. And
so we had mentioned the East End Boys family is growing. So what tips do you have for those of us who may be looking to grow the family? And how do you balance that?
Yeah, it actually brings me back to one of the conversations you all had in the 8-5 drafting episode where you talked about like, why do people want to play so early on Saturdays? That's part of the balance. Like you can kind of tell like who has kids and who doesn't based on like how early they want to get up. Because if I can get out there at 6 o'clock and be back and done before people have been awake for too long, like that makes the day so much easier. And the older your kids get, the more activities they have on Saturdays. So if I want to be able to participate in this glorious thing that we have on Saturdays, like I have to get up at 6 o'clock. That's one of the ways to balance it.
That's so helpful. So you and Karen both play tennis. What does a normal weekend look like for the two of y'all?
Question.
And what's it going to look like when number 2 arrives?
Yeah. Who knows when number 2 arrives? I'm hopeful that like my Saturdays, that's kind of like a sacred thing. Like it's on our calendar, it's on our shared calendar. She knows like in the morning on Saturdays, unless there's something really big, for the most part, I'm out playing tennis. That's like one thing that's like my big social thing. It's my big exercise thing. That encompasses everything that I do in like my free time, which sometimes you think about it, it's like, oh man, that's kind of lame.
Oh,
for the most part, it's a really cool thing to be a part of. And, for the most, like on Sundays, she'll get out and play tennis probably like during the afternoon. And sometimes I'll get out in the morning or in the evening. The weekends are kind of for tennis in a way.
Yeah. So you play a fair amount of tournaments and you can't really tell the tournament director, I want to play at 6:30 a.m. So how do you work with that?
The cool thing about tournaments is you can plan around it, right? And so this Wilmington tournament we kind of turned it into a family trip, right? So not only did I just go out there, but we got a nice hotel on the beach, and my wife and kid were at the beach all day and kind of did their own thing while I was out playing tennis and hanging out and doing all kinds of cool stuff. And like I'm going to be in Cary Summer Sizzle coming up, and with 2 kids just a month old, like I have my in-laws coming to stay so that they can help my wife while I go out and do a tournament. So you just kind of like plan around it, and for the most part, like especially if your partner plays or understands how important it is to you, for the most part, you can make that work.
Mark, you're making this sound too easy. This can't be that easy. You're giving us all the answers to all of our questions.
I don't think it's in some cases for the most part, I don't think it's as hard as sometimes you think it's going to be. Like
scale of 1 to 10, how hard is parenting? Like 2 or 3?
Like the baby stage, probably like a 4.
Okay.
Like, for the most part, they don't do anything. They don't move. The only thing you're trying to do is not let them die. Like, if you can get past that, for the most part, man, you're golden.
Do you okay, so I know for me, when Sarah and I have a kid, that kid is going to be dripped out all the time. I'm going to be buying the dumbest, most ridiculous outfits. They're going to be tennis themed. They're going to, I don't know, there must be like a firefighter themed one or a cowboy one, whatever. Do you do that? Does Karen do that? Do both of y'all do that? And if so, how do you stop?
Dude, so, I mean, I don't know if you've seen how I dress. I don't really have the most fashion sense in the world. But like, I totally did that for our first kid. Like at the beginning, we bought all this type of stuff, and she got to wear it maybe once or twice, and it was just a lot of money for not that much, not that much court time, if you will, right? So, dude, I will not be doing that for the second one. The second one just gets all hand-me-downs.
Well, you already did it once, right? So, like, you bases covered. Whatever outfit you want to get out, you get it out. I recognize that the due date is tomorrow, so this is maybe like a ridiculous question to ask at this moment, but are you thinking that you would like more after number 2? Like or are we?
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Cut it off. Throw it away. I don't want any of that stuff.
Yeah.
No more kids. That's it. Last one.
That makes sense. Like you're outnumbered with 3.
Yeah.
That's like the inmates are running the asylum at that point.
Dude, it's not linear growth. It's exponential. Yeah. I see like family members who have 3 children, and it is tough.
Yeah. Well, just from like a pure logistics perspective, it's like, okay, like we got 2 kids. They need to go to 2 different places. You go here, I'll go there. You throw a third in the mix, and it's like, oh man, what about number 3 there? Are they too young to take an Uber? Probably. Any closing thoughts, ruminations, suggestions, ideas about parenting broadly?
Like I said, I don't think it's as like daunting of a task as some people think it is, especially when you've never had one before. You can go through it. Billions of people have gone through it. At the end of the day, it will be okay.
I don't know. You have not met my niece.
That's just kind
I haven't met my niece. It's not going to be okay. I don't think it's going to be okay for them.
Matt, what makes you say that,
She's
man?
Insane. So hard. I can only last 2
How
weeks.
old is your niece?
Like, I don't know. I lose track. She's like 4, maybe. She just, I think I can't remember. I told the story the other day. She just came up. Do your kids ever do this? They come up to your ear really close and scream as loud as they can and then run away laughing. Yeah. I don't know. You just have great kids, Mark. You did a great job. Anyways.
If your daughter did that, Mark, would you still say 4 on a scale out of 1 to 10 difficulty? If that was a regular occurrence?
She'd get like a consequence, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
She wouldn't be able to watch her movie later that night, So
yeah.
There's always ways to deal with it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, listen, we're going to move into a quick section of plugs, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about Mark the person and the tennis player. And we're going to talk about that one-handed backhand for sure. So get ready for that. Matt, why don't you start us off? What do you want to plug today?
Well, we got to plug subscribing to the YouTube channel. So, Zach, you haven't heard this actually. There was a bit of a scare because we brought in a new director of marketing whose name I'm not going to say because I don't think we're ready yet. And I was talking with that individual, and the YouTube account is under my Gmail, which was a mistake. I knew it when I did it, but I was lazy. And so when we brought on this new marketing director, I don't want to give them access to my email. So we were going through options and we were like, shit, we might have to like delete it and start over. And we knew Zach was going to be so sad because we had so many subscribers of 25 and we would have had to lose them. And I was texting.
We're actually in the 30s
now.
I was
texting this individual. I was like, we just can't do it to Zach. We got to figure this out. So we put our brains together and we figured out a way to make this individual a manager so they can also post and edit and do things. So subscribe to the YouTube channel. Very exciting that we were able to do this and not have to recreate.
Think about the labor and the love that Matt and this unnamed individual.
It could be Mark. You don't know.
It could be Mark.
Could be.
Mark has never once denied that he's a director of marketing. Director of Mark.
Oh, nice.
Interesting. Food for thought. Mark, what do you want to plug today?
Swing Vision. Gentlemen, it is free for the first 2 hours every single month.
Ooh.
You do not have to pay for anything. Record a match. Get your content out there. I get so excited every time I see that Zach is recording.
I'm going to download it right now.
So get out there, record something. It's a lot of fun.
I do. I've only done this a couple times, but Mark, when you record, I'll text you like late at night when I'm watching your match at 10:30, like, Mark, we're in bed together. You're you're in my bed right now. And it's true, Mark. Sometimes you are the last thing that I think about before I go to sleep because of your Swing Vision. And just think, if you downloaded that app, that could be you, other people.
Got it right here. We're ready to go. Let's go.
And also, Mark, I'm gonna plug your plug. Use Mark's Swing Vision code, so that way because I believe you get some good stuff if you refer somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, you get some solid swag with one. I can't remember what you get for 3, but for 5 you get an Apple Watch.
Whoa, what's your code?
Ooh.
I don't know.
Put it in the
it's
chat.
long.
Put it in the chat later. Put it in the group chat.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Folks, have I got a plug for you this week? It is not. Is it Swing Vision? No. Though I do have to say, it still hurts me deeply that they did not accept me as an influencer. They still have an excellent product. So Mark, thank you for plugging them so I don't have to. This week, I want to keep it a bit more local. They say that election riff, and it's true. I know we talk a lot on this pod about how much of a want, nay, a need it is for Durham to have public clay courts. We talk about fixing the timers at East End, fixing the lights at Sobo, but to make this into a reality, what do we need? Better representation? Maybe. More tennis players in the city council? Perhaps. But all in all, it comes down to money. You want those better lights at Sobo? I hear you. You want those lights to stay on past 10 p.m.? Maybe Spencer doesn't agree, but I think so. And that kind of local change starts with one word: more participation. And folks, there's no better way than to get new faces into this beautiful game in the premier tennis community this side of the Mississippi. And so I'm imploring our listeners to take a more active role in helping the beginner players who want to learn, play, become future players and captains, directors, and volunteers to learn, how to hit a two-handed backhand, how to follow the ball in doubles. All this to say, the Try Tennis and Try Play programs are in desperate need of more coaches. For $50, they're going to give you $50. All they're asking, folks, is to give up 90 minutes on a Saturday or Sunday to chill in the sunshine and feed balls to eager new players, encourage them, make fun of them when their girlfriend passes them down the line a little bit, make their weekend by telling them their footwork looks great, and get them participating in this game we all love so much. $50, that's half a new case of balls. That's a lot of tennis gear. If you have Chris Moffat's number, please text him and tell him you want to help out with the Try program. And if you don't, reach out to Michael Young, reach out to Matt or myself. If you don't have Michael Young's number, we'll connect you. It takes a couple hours of training. You set your own schedule, and you get the satisfaction of knowing that you're getting the next generation of adult recreational tennis players onto the courts. If this podcast strives to promote good dudeliness, there is no greater good dude move than helping people discover such an amazing sport and be healthy and active and make friends.
Great plug.
Shout out to Michael Young, who I promised that I would read that entire thing for.
Yeah.
That was good writing. He could write. The guy could write. That was good to write. Yep. And with that, lefty mark, sure shot, sure. When did you start playing tennis?
So I started playing in 2016, but that was just with my wife, like going out to East Campus courts over at Duke and just like hitting. Didn't know what I was doing. Would just like watch YouTube and try and emulate. But I think my first USTA season was in 2018, where I signed up as a 3-0, and I played on Graham High's tennis team. Yeah. So in that year, man, it was weird. So there was only enough for 2 3-0 teams.
Wow.
It was us and then one team out in Hillsboro at this club that's kind of like really far out there. The name escapes me. But like we lost that, and so they all went to states. And then a lot of those guys got bumped. So the next year after that, there wasn't enough for 2 3-0 USTA teams, so we had to play up to 3-5. And I don't think that I got a win for years. Like my first year playing tennis, like 2018 to maybe like 2020, I think I was in single digits on wins, and like playing multiple leagues a year. It was like at this point, like where I just got so despondent with tennis. Like I just expected to lose every time I walked on the court.
How did you keep playing after that? That seems rough. Yeah. You must have really enjoyed it, I guess.
Yeah, so I really liked it, and it was something that I did with my wife that was a lot of fun. So, like I kept playing, and I had, kind of like this tiny group of friends that I played with, and it was it was fun from that perspective, but like I stopped playing for a few years, and then I got back into it in Josh Collins' league during COVID. He did
Mixed Doubles League. It's famous, yeah.
Yeah. So I got back into that one, and we got in. My wife and I got in as subs, and I think we were like 6-0. We would like play for the blue team and the red team, and it started taking like a lesson like once every few months, and it started to like some things started to click, but still pretty far away. And it wasn't until recently that I actually started winning, like with any sort of regularity. Like just always going out there, man. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Well, talk to us about this, because I think everyone has been through a slump. Everybody has been, or many people have been bumped up a level, and the challenges that come with that. Like what did you use to get through it? Like how were you able to kind of stay in that positive space that we all know that you're able to stay in?
Like at a certain point, like I said, I just walked out there thinking that I was going to lose, and like just accepting that as not a possibility, but more of like inevitability. It just like made it so much easier. Like not only was I going out there trying to play, but I was getting exercise, and it's good for my mental health and all that stuff. So like I looked at it more as it's just like, hey man, I'm just like going on a run. I'm not necessarily.
I want to get into this really quickly. So you said that was good for your mental health to get out there, just being active, being healthy, and that makes sense to me. But for an awful lot of us, losing is not good for our mental health. It brings out the inner child who needs to go to therapy, and a lot of us, myself included. Like, how are you able to keep it good for your mental health, man? Like how like that is such a talent.
Yeah, like at that point, like I didn't care about tennis.
Yeah,
like tennis was just this one thing that I like I played on like one league every season, and like I just didn't care. Like there was no ambitions of going to state. I didn't even know really what state was. I mean, it was just like, I'm just going out there and I'm just playing. And then it wasn't until I joined the East End Boys that like I had that desire to win.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just like something I'm just playing for myself, but I'm also playing for a team of friends.
Yeah.
And like not only do I want to win for myself, but I want to win for the team as well. Right.
Yeah.
Let me call out someone here. You had mentioned Josh Collins' mixed doubles team. He's a great dude. Would love to have him on the pod. He was telling Spencer he did not want to come on the podcast. And I know Josh Collins likes a good challenge. And I'm not one to challenge, but I want to challenge you, Josh Collins. I know you're listening. Come on the pod. You're a great guy.
Well, hold the phone now. Hold the darn phone, because I saw in a group meet not that long ago that Matt James and Josh Collins were considering starting a tennis podcast. And I very much want them to. We want more triangle tennis content. And so, Josh, if you're listening, man, we got to get you on the pod so you can see. It's not that hard. You just show up and talk tennis with your buddies. We do this shit whether we're recording or not. Mark, I think, can confirm, yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, how much time in a given week do you spend bullshitting about tennis, would you say?
Oh man, not as much as everybody in the chat. I remember when I first got added to the chat, Michael Young had asked me, he's like, "Hey, Mark, do you like talking tennis?" And I was like, "Oh, hell yeah, I do." And then I quickly realized that no, I don't, because the amount of like tennis chatter in our group is like mind-boggling. It's crazy the amount of like tennis fever that our boys feed off of. And like I don't talk tennis a lot. Like I watch tennis, but like I don't talk tennis a lot, especially compared to the rest of the group.
So, yeah.
Okay. No,
we're gonna ask a question.
So I'm actually I'm gonna ask a slightly different one because Mark, you said you watch a lot of tennis. Do you find that you get more out of watching WTA, ATP, or just your buddies on Swing Vision?
Yeah, man. So I don't really watch a lot of WTA just because of the licensing stuff. Right? They're not on Tennis Channel or Tennis Plus, Tennis TV. And for the most part, like I watch like 90% doubles.
Oh,
yeah.
So like occasionally I'll get some mixed doubles in there, but for the most part, I don't watch any WTA. And like you and Ari, I think are my only content providers on Swing Vision.
I've been like begging Michael Young to download Swing Vision and just do it for, I don't know, a year plus.
Play so much, man. We would have so much content.
Yeah, Matt, what you're getting back into it. You probably need to see if your technique is held up. Like you should start recording. Yeah,
if I can find a place to put my cell phone tonight, I will record tonight. Because I don't have a thing. I don't have a.
Oh, I have one for you. You
I
can have
it. I don't have a Swing Vision stick, so I'll try to place it somewhere tonight. If not, I'll have to get a Swing Vision stick. I don't know if I want to see myself because it's so. This is really good for me, Mark, because I've gone out and hit a few times, and I was, I got bumped up. I had a great spring season, and now I suck at tennis, and it's very frustrating. So this has been very inspiring.
Yeah, it is not fun to watch your stuff. Yeah. I mean, it isn't, especially after watching like pros. Mm-hmm. It's really not.
Oh, that's fun. Easy. I don't watch the pros. No problem.
There you go.
It's easy.
I find that I enjoy watching the pros. I don't get anything out of it in terms of my game because like they're, I am 5'10", like audio podcast, but I'm winking. And most of those guys are tall. They're in world-class shape. And, I'm not quite there. And like, I can't relate to the stuff they can do on a court. But when I watch Mark, you on Swing Vision, when I watch, if Mike Westlander's recorded or I watch an old match, like I feel like I actually learn stuff that I can do realistically on a tennis court. I feel like in fact, I get worse watching the pros sometimes because like they hit shots that look super cool that I have no business trying in a match. And then a match day comes and I'll try those shots.
Mm-hmm. You know who's really good to watch that I've learned so much from like watching his matches is Stewart.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Every time I see Stewart on the court, even if I'm not playing with him, like this last Saturday, I just stuck up my Swing Vision and recorded one of his matches. Like Stewart is something to study. I mean, that guy's movement is.
Yeah. He's a textbook player.
What else is it about? Because I feel the same way. When you watch Stewart play, like what do you learn about him and about what you should be doing?
Yeah, I mean, so like I was listening to this one podcast. There's this doubles only podcast who, as the title denotes, only talks about doubles tennis. And like one of the things that he tells you is like when you're watching pro players, especially in doubles, like don't watch the ball at all. And, like for the most part, especially if you're trying to work on doubles, only watch the player at the net. And so, because it's hard to focus on two people, much less four, right? So every time I watch Stewart, like that guy is so active, and he really embodies. There's this one like seminar I watched of Gigi Fernandez, and she was talking about like as the net player, you have multiple jobs, but your job is never to do nothing. And like Stewart never does nothing. He's either poaching, he's either faking the poach, or he's like faking the poach and like defending the line. He is always moving. And that's like one thing that I've learned just from like watching him is you can never not think about him. And that's what I think makes him such an effective player.
What's the name of that podcast, by the way? We want to promote all tennis content that is good because so much of it is mediocre. And that's also why we want copycats and other people starting their own podcasts. The caliber of general tennis content sucks.
Yeah, it's called the Doubles Only Podcast. I think it was started by like a guy who played for Duke.
Oh, cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so he was like a Duke player, primarily played in doubles, really into like promoting the game of doubles and trying to get it to be more popular, et cetera, et cetera.
Is he still local?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Matt, are you thinking crossover episode?
No, I wasn't, but that's a good idea.
I don't think we can get them, but they can definitely get us.
Yeah,
if they want us on that podcast.
Yeah.
We don't know shit, but we'll talk.
Yeah, sure. I'll have to reach out. So pivot a little bit. You said you grew up wrestling. Is there any transferable skills between the two?
Yeah, a lot of it, I think, just because wrestling is an individual sport, that transfers really well to tennis. Like, I mean, there's no team aspect to it. It's either like it's just you and somebody else there. And there's a little bit of coaching that can happen, but for the most part, when you're out there, you're out there. And I think that really helps with, just being able to like mentally focus on certain things and like really just stay calm and stay cool throughout the whole, stressful.
So more of the mental.
What
game.
was Mark?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
What was Mark the wrestler like?
Mark the wrestler was in a lot better shape than he was. Yeah. So I wrestled all the way from elementary school to high school. Wow. I thought about wrestling in college, but like unless you're like a top tier stud, the scholarships are minimal for like D2, D3 wrestling. So it didn't make much sense.
Was your style explosive? Were you technical?
No. Much more technical. Much more of like a counter wrestler. I was never like the strongest or the fastest, but I was really good technically from just like understanding wrestling. And I won state a few times. And
wow, what state?
Texas. And then
that's probably a pretty good wrestling state because it's Texas. Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty big. You think about it like, oh, Texas is huge. It's not like a huge wrestling state. I mean, really, you got to go up to like the Corn region, up in Ohio, Iowa, Minnesota, all those places. I mean, those are the stud places for wrestling.
Did your high school football coach like beg, plead, coerce, cajole you to try and play football?
They asked like once or twice, but like I never really had much of an interest in football. And for the most part, like wrestling was because wrestling's year round.
Oh,
yeah.
Right. So like I would do freestyle wrestling and then I would do Greco wrestling. So, those are year round. So there's not really much of a break. And I definitely didn't want to do both. I wish I had played tennis though.
Yeah, that's all right.
So where in Texas did you grow up?
So I went to high school in Dallas, Texas, but for the most part, I lived in Georgia before that.
Mm-hmm. So what was it like transferring schools between, from Georgia to Texas? Was there culture shock? Was it more or less just kids there or what?
Where I grew up in Georgia was a rural area, and then we moved to Dallas, which is fairly large city. So that was the only like big culture shock, just going from kind of like a farm area to a metro.
Did you enjoy that change?
Oh yeah, so much more to do. Yeah, so much more to do. I mean, from where I grew up, there was nothing.
Yeah. So what did you do when you're in a small town in Georgia?
Wrestling.
That's why I got so good.
That was it.
Yeah.
There was like nothing else to do. That was the big thing in the school. It was like wrestling and basketball. I couldn't play basketball, so that was it, man.
So you get to Texas, and I'm guessing people didn't know who you were because you're an eighth grader before you got there. Did you immediately come in and start dominating in wrestling, or did people know who you were before you got there? What was that like?
So you have to like, especially if you're going to go to like the wrestling team, like I brought like my records with me, like what I had done in Georgia, and I had gone to like a few tournaments that were close to Texas. So, I wouldn't say they knew who I was, but they weren't unfamiliar with like the results. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't like the top person on the team. There was one guy above me, and I think he ended up like wrestling for Cornell or something. Mm-hmm. He was a big dude. Yeah.
And so, shifting back from wrestling to tennis a little bit, how would you describe your tennis style? And do you think it is in line with your wrestling style, or is there a divergence?
Yeah, definitely a divergence, man. My tennis is much more like a quick strike tennis, like for the most part. And I think that's where a lot of the errors come from. Like I do not have long points. Matt and I are probably about as on opposite ends of the spectrum as we could possibly be. Like
that's funny. We've been good doubles partners. We play together.
We did. We played together once. We played against Spencer and Bacher.
How'd we?
And I think we took him.
I think we beat him.
We took him in 2 sets.
I remember that. We did beat him. Yeah. Good job, us.
Yeah.
So you guys are both lefties.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like seeing other lefties on the court? Do you like playing with other lefties? What's the deal?
So I can count on like one hand how many times I've played against another lefty that wasn't on a Saturday. Right? It's so weird. Like from a percentage perspective, like we have a abnormally high percentage of lefty tennis players in our group.
Yeah.
Like the vast majority of triangle lefties.
I played
are in our
two
group.
lefties on the same team. It was a nightmare. It was on clay. It was an absolute nightmare. I told my partner Jason going in, it's like, we're done. Like we never stood a chance.
Why is that? Shouldn't it be, in theory, more natural as a lefty to play another lefty?
My serve everything goes, my whole game is about going to your backhand.
The forehand.
And so now it's going to the forehand, and then on clay, my slice serve sat up. So Jason my partner must have gotten hit like 10 times just on the return of serve. I was setting up for their forehand to just smack him in the face. I told him at halfway through to just stay back because you're going to get hurt.
Yeah, I personally like playing lefties because just like Matt said, I mean, all of their advantage goes to my advantage as well. So,
yeah,
I can't wait. I want to see the two of you all play two other lefties on Swing Vision.
That's too many lefties. That's too many lefties, man. I don't like Swing Vision. The computer won't know what to do. It hasn't been trained on that many lefties. It won't know how to. It'll be so inaccurate. It'll be like, I cannot calculate. I don't have enough training data to tell you what's going on.
That would be a special. Well, not only are you both lefties, you are both lefties with one-handed backhands. So what percentage of the population is left-handed?
I don't know. I could Google it. What percentage is left-handed?
It's low.
It's not that. It's like 10%.
10. Yeah. Google says 10.
So if 10%, so 1 in 10 that somebody's left-handed, then what percentage of tennis players have one-handed backhands?
What percent?
And like what percentage of those lefties actually play tennis, right?
Yeah. No, like you guys are actually. I am surrounded by unicorns right now. I am awed at your one-handed left-handed presence. You guys are 1 in 100.
Yeah.
Tops minimum. I don't know.
1 in a million.
1 in a million.
1 in a million.
Indeed.
That's a good way to put
indeed.
it. So, Mark, you're also a member of Hollow Rock. So, what are the pros and cons of having that for some of us who are interested in joining clubs like that?
Matt and I are both on the wait list.
Yeah, we're on the wait list.
I know. I tried to talk.
Just needed to remind everyone that we're on the wait list. But go ahead, Mark.
I mean, the only positive to that, really, aside from like if you want to play on clay, I personally hate clay. So even when I play at Hollow Rock, for the most part, I play on the hard courts. Is just being able to get a guaranteed court.
Yep.
Like I don't have to worry about, is there going to be a league match? Are there going to be pickleballers? Are there going to be somebody else playing? You know, I have a guaranteed court, and like from that perspective, it's awesome. But other than that.
But you have the pool there. Do you think you'll use the pool with the kids more? That's the other thing I've heard from parents is like the pool is helpful.
Yeah, the pool's really nice, especially like if you have a mid-afternoon match, go dunk yourself in the pool afterwards. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So where else did you look, and why did you pick Hollow Rock?
At the time, so I looked at Chapel Hill Tennis Club because, like I said, I live in Chapel Hill, and Chapel Hill Country Club. But so at the time, those two were super expensive, and Hollow Rock was like Hollow Rock was hurting for members, and they were. I mean, they waived all kinds of things to get you in. You know, now I understand the waiting list is super long, but it wasn't like that. You know, and it was like, and it's grown by like 8 courts since I've been there now, since I became a member. And like they cannot grow any more courts because then they have to pay the city of Durham to increase the size of the road near the club. So they're at capacity now.
That's probably why they have the wait list. That kind of makes sense because they can't grow any more courts.
But I just want to make sure I understand it. So you join, and then from that moment forward, basically everything goes right. So if you're a racket club in the Triangle, like you should be begging Mark to show up there. You should be giving away the memberships. So something to think about for the club directors who are listening. So before we wrap, we're going to get to a few more questions with Mark. Matt, you're heading out. Yeah. Tell people where and why.
I have to go. I'm going to go try my hand out in tennis and see how I feel. And I'm going to do my best to swing vision it. I don't know if it'll work, but I will try. So I will see y'all later.
I respect your priorities. And Mark, I'm looking forward to a little bit of one-on-one time here. Bye, Matt. All right, so I want to dig into your first league season a little bit more. Tell us what it was like.
So I only play doubles for the most part. Like if I'm playing singles, especially on like a spring team, something has happened. Like multiple people are dead. There's like nobody left to play. So, and my net game was so bad.
Yeah.
So like every time I was at the net, it was just a free point to hit it at me. Easy, like either I would flub it into the net, it would hit me, I would miss it. Like volleys were just the worst. So yeah, man, I think that first season, I think I lost every match. Maybe I won one, but I'd be shocked.
So you, in the span of about 5 or 6 years, went from not getting any wins at 3-0 to doing well in 3-0 to having a tough season at 3-5 to doing very well in 3-5 to now getting consistent wins at 4-0. How'd you do that? And what are the differences in levels that you've encountered along the way?
So I attribute all of that to the Saturdays. Like getting into the East End Boys Saturday group has improved my game and countless others' games by leaps and bounds. Like the variety of people that you play against, the variety of levels, the variety of styles. I mean, it just, I feel like it prepares you for anything. Every time I go into a match, I always tell myself, like, there's nobody I'm going to play here that is better than who I play on Saturday.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I really, in addition to the fact there's just a bunch of great guys and people who I enjoy spending time with off the court are there. The variety of games. And I think that is a thing that when I first got back into tennis was sort of holding me back, because I was playing with, when I was in DC, same guy every couple times every week. When I first moved back to the Triangle, my buddy Sam Fishman is the one who really kind of got me back into it here. We were playing, he was my go-to regular tennis buddy, but I wasn't seeing that many styles and varieties. And since I started seeing that, it's been helpful for me as well. Is there any style of play that you kind of avoid, that you don't want to see because it just doesn't vibe with you?
Yeah, I think the one that's really hard for me is just like the grinder. Like anybody who grinds, they're going to beat me, 9 times out of 10, just because I still don't have that ball tolerance. I still don't, or the shot tolerance, and I still just don't have the patience to do what I try to do too much. And yeah, like I said, Matt Hanhauer is on the exact opposite end of the spectrum for me. So he would be like my worst.
So you talked about how in wrestling your game was your style was technical, you were deliberate, you were a kind of counter, not puncher, but you know what I mean. And your tennis is not like that. Why is that? Like, what is different about tennis?
It's just like you kind of chase that high from hitting a winner. Right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
How many times I've talked to somebody about like, oh, Mark, why are you trying that drop shot? Because I hit it once and it was beautiful, and I'm chasing that high every single time I get on the court. The same reason why, like, I try to hit the ball as hard as I do sometimes. It's like you hit that winner and it's clean and it sounds amazing, just like a gunshot.
Yeah.
And, you chase that. Like, and eventually at some point it's got to come in, right? Statistic shows.
Do you have a signature shot? You do. Do you know what your signature shot is?
Do I have a signature shot? I don't think so.
Oh, you do. Oh, you do.
I do? Oh, tell me, what is it?
It's the inside out return, inside out lefty forehand return, which is full on mean spirited every time you do it.
That is brand new. Because for the most part, you always put a lefty on ad, right? Like, and so my entire tennis career, I played ad every single match. Every time there'd be a spreadsheet, I'd always put ad preferred, ad preferred, ad preferred. And I can't remember who it was. It might have been Michael Young or one of some other righty that preferred playing on ad.
Yeah.
And like, it just got me used to hitting that inside out forehand. And yeah, man, I guess you're right. That could be my signature shot.
Well, the last, 3 or 4 times that we've been on a court together, I always try to be on your team because I love the way you play at the net in particular. You are so consistent with the putaways. And, I think that to me is like top tier priority in a doubles partner, is somebody who is going to finish the ball at the net. You don't want somebody who just kind of keeps it in play at the net. I really struggle with that. But when we were on the other side, when I was on the other side from you, I'd try and kick it. I'd try to slice it. I would do everything I could in my power to get it to your backhand. And I don't know if it's that you can read where the serve is going, that you stand further out there, but you always seem to be able to hit the forehand. Tell people how you prepare to do that. Is that something you set out to do? Is that just a happy accident? Like, how do you generate so many forehands on the return?
Yeah, so that's something that I've been working with the guy I take lessons with, is not accepting a backhand anymore. Because half the time, like I would just, if the ball would come to that side, I would never move my feet. I think it comes down to footwork and that idea of just, I'm going to maximize the amount of forehands that I hit. And swing vision has been super big for that, because like I look at the statistics to find out. And a while ago, it was like 50-50.
Right.
I would hit 50% backhand, 50% forehand. And now it's like 70-30. And I feel like the more I can hit my forehand, the higher percentage that I have of winning, just because the backhand is easily attackable.
Yeah. It's funny, man. Basically every single level outside of maybe the pros, it's like, what's the winning strategy? Make the other guy hit more backhands and don't double fault, and make your first serve as much as you can. But it's so much easier said than done. And kudos to you. You have found a way to make it much, much harder for somebody to do that by being intentional in setting up those forehands. So what was that process like when you consciously chose to make that switch or make that effort?
Trying to work on footwork and not being lazy to just, again, like accept a backhand, just like moving my feet just a little bit, trying to be a little bit more anticipatory in shots. And like, especially on return of serve, I mean, I stand really far to the right on the deuce.
Yeah.
Like I am almost in the alley. Like if you hit down that tee, it's an ace most of the time. But like I give people the tee in hopes that they're going to make a mistake on that. That's a much lower percentage shot, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. But also, like, how many players at the recreational level can consistently hit a flat serve on the tee good enough that you can't get back in time? Like, does that happen very often?
No, not super often.
Do people go for it pretty often?
Sometimes, what is this idiot doing? It's like standing way out there in the alley. But, for the most part, that's like their bread and butter, that kicker out wide, right?
Yeah.
And, I mean, unless it's a really good one like yours, or Josh Lundberg is really good at it. I can, for the most part, hit like a forehand off of it.
I think at the recreational level, far too many people, they kind of know roughly where they're supposed to stand. They pick one place and they just stand there on every single return. I find it really helpful to mix up where I stand. Do you ever, like, do you kind of have that one spot that you're always going to be, or do you move around a little bit so it's harder for them to read where you're going to be?
Yeah, so I don't move around so much on the return of serve, but on serving, I do that all the time. And like sometimes I move just to give them something else to look at. Like I plan on serving in exactly the same spot, to the same spot rather, but like I'll move. And it just gives somebody else, some other little tiny thing to think about.
Yeah, I love that. Hey, so, okay, you grew up initially in Georgia, in rural Georgia. You moved to Dallas. You go back to University of Georgia for undergrad. Go Dogs. What brought you to the Triangle?
Oh, work. I mean, kind of like anybody who works in computer science, like all roads lead to RTP at some point.
Yeah.
And I mean, just like RTP was starting to boom really like when I got out of college, and a few years I spent doing other things, and then just, you can't ignore the call.
So what year did you first arrive in the Triangle?
2014. 2014 is when I moved here.
Yeah. All right. So 10 years ago, a lot has changed in 10 years. What are the biggest differences?
I mean, just seeing like the growth that Durham has had, because at that time I lived in Durham, and like Durham has just exploded.
Yeah.
And, certain areas have just really gone from not the nicest areas to just like burgeoning, restaurant spaces and bars and all this type of stuff. It's really cool to see.
Yeah. I mean, the place that I used to live downtown when I was a kid, it was like, there just wasn't stuff there. Like, there were old factories that they hadn't done anything with in years and years and years. And now it's like, it's the warehouse district.
Yeah.
And I think
it's such a Durham thing.
I know, right? Like, Durham is really a special place, and we have been told that there's a bit of a Durham bias in this podcast. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I personally have a strong Durham bias. What's it going to take to get you out of Chapel Hill and back to Durham?
Dude, so like when we were looking for a house, we applied, or we submitted offers on like 13 houses, all in Durham. We lost on all of them. We just kept expanding the search radius, and ended up in Chapel Hill. I mean, and at this point, like we looked at moving back to Durham.
Yeah.
The problem is the schools.
Yeah.
Right? Like the topic of the podcast, having a child, Durham schools, it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm a big proponent of public schools, so I definitely don't want to, advocate for like a private school or anything like that. And the public schools in Chapel Hill they're just better.
How long's the drive from where you're at in Chapel Hill to over in Durham? It's because it's not that bad, right?
No, it's not that bad. It's like 18 minutes to about 30 minutes. Just depends on where you go.
Yeah. I find anything over like 25 minutes and it starts to feel like I got to match in Cary tonight. And that feels like, God, I got to go all the way to Cary. It's like 32 minutes. I'm being a big baby. But for 8 o'clock matches in particular, that's tough. Do you play any out of Eno leagues or does that drive time make it more difficult for you?
So when I lived in Durham, I used to play Cary a lot.
Yeah.
I do not play Cary anymore, but I did just sign up for a Raleigh team. Shout out Max Gregson.
Yeah.
Got me on a Raleigh team, so I'm excited about that.
What's the right number of leagues to play in a season for you?
Oh, man. If I could, I'd play a lot more than I do.
How many do you play?
Right now, it's usually like 1 or 2.
Yeah.
I usually will play like 2 levels, 3, 5, 4, 0, or whatever combination there might be. But I'm going to start branching out in the fall and playing multiple cities.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited about that because I want to get bumped up, but I think I need the volume.
Yeah. Yeah.
To get the bump.
Do you have a favorite league season? Some people like combo. Yeah.
Yeah. Combo.
Tell us why.
So, you get to play with guys that you don't normally get to play with. And it's a lot of fun. Just getting to play with some of the higher level guys from the Saturdays is a ton of fun. And I feel like combo is one that like brings together the most amount of people from different groups. So not only do I have my 3-5 friends, I got my 4-0 friends. And then for the 8-5 league, I got the 4-0 friends and the 4-5 friends, which I don't really know that well. So
which team are you on for the 8-5 league?
I'm on yours, buddy.
There we go. Okay, cool. Then we can talk about what a great betrayal it was that Matt and Spencer didn't draft us. And Team Mo Young, I don't know if we're going to states, but I know we're finishing above Team Hanauer Llewellyn. That's a fact. Sorry, Matt. He's going to hear this when he edits, and I think that's fantastic.
I totally disappointed Spencer in our frozen assets on the one match him and I played together.
Oh, no.
So I'm not surprised. Yeah, we got cranked by these brothers. One of them, I think he plays like club at UNC.
Oh, come on. That's unfair. Well, by the way, with brothers, you can go either way. Sometimes,
Yeah.
You get those meltdowns sometimes.
Yeah, it was a rough match.
Yeah. Okay, so combo is your favorite league season. I think one thing I just want to say about that, I also agree that it's great because it brings together people that otherwise might not be on a court and both across levels, but also look, we both play with a group called the East End Boys. There are several other fantastic groups of players in the area. And I think the more collaboration there are between groups, the better for the community broadly. Because at the end of the day, like we all have the same passion. We all have the same hobby. We all care way too much about it. And we probably would get along if we weren't playing against each other. And even sometimes when we are playing against each other, we will. Do you think that's, are you supportive of more cross-group collaboration or whatever?
Oh, 100%, man. I think that speaking of frozen assets a moment ago, like that was a really cool experience because I got drafted on Spencer Llewellyn's team and I knew nobody on the team. There are all these different faces in the group me, but I had never played with really any of them. And so I got to meet like a ton of guys that I had never played with, but I've always seen the name. And it was just such a cool way to like expand my circle because most of them play, I think, out in Raleigh.
Yeah.
And so since I don't play there, I don't really see those guys. So yeah, man, I'm all for that. And I love the drafting. Super fun.
So Mark, as has become the tradition on the Triangle Tennis Podcast, we try to close with this question, but we certainly want to ask it, which is, what does tennis mean to you?
So when I think of tennis, I think of, and I think people have said this before, but I think of the East End group. Like when you get into your 30s. So I'm 34 going on 35. And it's really hard to develop a group of, a really close-knit group of friendship like outside of college. For the most part, like people in my corporate world, like they all go home to their families and you intermingle during the day. But for the most part, there's no like camaraderie there. And it's really hard for like an adult married person to find like a group of friends. And this is just such an amazing group of guys. I mean, talk about good dudeliness, right?
Yeah.
So like that's what tennis means to me. Like at this point, is just it's all for the guys. It's like all for the good vibes, all for the like friendships and hanging out with folks and being on teams and shooting the shit in the group me. It's great. That's me.
Mark, having you on has been a good reminder that yeah, right now it's for the guys, but as people have kids and those kids get older, it's also about the example we're going to set for them both on and off the court. And you are somebody that I look up to, and I think a lot of us look up to as someone who's getting it right. So thank you so much for coming on. This has been another episode of the Triangle Tennis Podcast. Any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
I mean, thanks so much for having me, man. I really love the podcast. So it was a blast to be on. And, guys, subscribe. It's a great show. Listen to it and get Swing Vision.
Mark, we appreciate you. This has been another episode of the Triangle Tennis Podcast. Thanks for listening, everybody.